610-632-0975. But let's go to the Safe Auto Hotline, and we'll bring in a family member of 97.5 The Fanatic. You hear him every weeknight from 6 to 7 p.m. with John Marks on Talking Baseball with Dutch. He's former Philly catcher, and Philly's great, Darren Dutch Dalton. Dutch, what's happening, baby? What's going on?
Ashy, Kayals, how you doing, guys?
Doing good, man. Thanks for taking a couple of minutes of your day to talk some baseball with us.
Yeah, I'm not used to being up this early on a Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Dutch, when you look at the Phillies for 2012 and how this team has been decimated with injuries, and you have the fans starting to boo, is that really justified? And when you played, obviously, from some point in the 80s through the early 90s, how did you handle those tough crowds? I mean, would you be as outspoken as Shane Victorino was a couple days ago?
Well, here's the thing, Kayals. You know, I really respect what Shane did, because when you're looking at Shane, this is a guy whose name is being thrown about in trades, and what he's done here is he's been the guy to step up and say what everybody else in that clubhouse is thinking. And when you look at that, I love what Shane did, because he may not be here after the trade deadline, and he took one for the team. And I also think you got a lot of Phillies fans who are up on a roof ready to jump off, and I think it's too soon. And I don't think with the way this team's played, bringing us a World Series in 2008, that they deserve that.
And Dutch, you said a roof. You mean a roof, right?
Yeah, call it what you want, tomato, tomato, man.
All right, fair enough.
Hey, Dutch, got a quick question for you. So obviously, you're watching the 2012 Phillies, and there's a lot of attention on the catcher behind the plate right now on Carlos Ruiz. And I look at Carlos Ruiz, and I see that guy, and every night he gets to catch a guy named Roy Halladay or Cliff Lee or Cole Hamels. But if we rewind back to your days, you had guys like Curt Schilling, Terry Mulholland, Tommy Green. Are you a bit jealous of what Chooch gets to do behind the plate every night?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I personally think Schill and Doc are pretty much a wash. Mo's a little underrated, but he's no Cliff Lee. And you can take Tommy Green, Danny Jackson, Big Ben Rivera, add them all together, and they're still not as good as Hamels. So, yeah, I'm a bit jealous.
Darren Dalton with us on the Safe Auto Hotline. Nick Kale, Jason Ashworth, 97.5 The Fanatic. Dutch, Carlos Ruiz having a spectacular year. And obviously you watch all the games. You talk about it with Johnny Marks every night from 6 to 7. Where do you see Carlos Ruiz amongst the other catchers in baseball and specifically in the National League? Because you got the All-Star game coming up. We'd all love to see Chooch make it, but guys like Buster Posey, Yadier Molina, they get all the national publicity. Just how special is Carlos Ruiz?
Well, here's the thing with Chooch. I mean, here's a guy who a couple of years ago, you might have talked about him in the same breath as Molina as a defensive catcher. And now you're talking about him in the same breath as McCann and Posey on the offensive side. And I think what you've got in Chooch right now, and this isn't me being a homer, I think he's the best catcher not just in the National League, but in all of baseball.
All of baseball?
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for Joe Mauer, but they're so desperate to get him from behind the plate. And here's Chooch, who's got a huge offensive load that he's carrying, and on top of that, he's handling one of the best staffs in baseball, and he does an amazing job and just does not get enough credit.
Hey, that's some high praise coming from Dutch. Hey, Dutch, let me ask you this. So, we were talking, when we first asked you, we were talking about a couple of the boos that the Phillies were getting. And speaking of boos, there's a guy named Bobby Valentine who actually banned the boos from the clubhouse. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you love a good light lager. You'll take a good cold one. If you were a player, would you have issue with no boos in the clubhouse?
I'll tell you what, man, I might have retired.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Bobby V's taken over for Tito, and if he had any sense at all, he'd have seen what happened with Bo when Bo took over for Tito. You can't go from completely loose reins to drawing the horse in entirely. and now you got a guy who's taking beer and fried chicken away from some pretty tubby guys.
All right, enough. I can't do it anymore. I can't pull this on anymore. This is not actually Darren Dalton of the Fanatic on with us. No, it's not.
Really?
This is the fake Dutch Twitter guy at @fake_Dutch, and his name is Ray, and he does a really good job of imitating with the imposter Twitter account of Dutch Dalton, and the tweets are so spot on all the time.
Right on.
And he hashtags all the right-ons. And surprisingly, this past week, he sends a YouTube link with audio to me, Ashworth, and everybody else at the Fanatic. And he imitates Darren Dalton, not only on Twitter, but as you could tell just now, on the air. Ray, what are you doing, man? How do you pull this off?
It started not long after talking baseball with Dutch came on, and I was playing cards with one of my buddies when we were talking about it, and it just kind of popped out, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own from there.
Now, you told me in an email this past week that you're in a slow pitch softball league, and I guess before your game you do a segment with your teammates called Talking Slow Pitch Softball with Dutch. How does that go over with the boys and a couple cold ones?
Well, they love it. It's Dutch, Phil from Mount Airy, and Stone Cold Steve Austin hosting it. And,
really?
Yeah, they really get a kick out of it. And Christopher Walken makes an appearance every now and again.
Okay.
And we hype up the Ron Hurst Cafe, and we're not very good, so we need the amusement.
All right, well, good stuff, man. Appreciate you popping on. You can follow him at @fake_Dutch. His name is Ray. He does some good impersonations, and the Dutch, man, it's spot on. It really is funny, and maybe down the line, Johnny Marks will get you on with Talking Baseball with Dutch. I'd love to see like a little segment where like John Marks asks like 5 questions on the Phillies, and the real Dutch against the fake Dutch answer. That would be pretty funny. What do you think?
I would love that. I'd get a kick out of that.
All right, I'll run that idea by Marks. Good stuff, man.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You got it.
Baby. Ray, whatever.
We might have to like pull that and rack that and play a good 45 seconds of that in the next hour.
That's a good get. That's a good get. Because, I mean, his impersonation is pretty spot on.
It really is good.
Even those little nuances, those little words, he just hits the right intonation. I got to give him credit.
I like the fact that he says that with the yeah and the yeah man, and then he rolls into the laugh and the chuckle.
Man.
Yeah, it's really good. So we thought we'd have a little fun with that. So let us know what you think, either at 610-632-0975 or on the text board, Fanatic and your message, 68255. All right, we got one.